Okay, hey, my name is Alan Wolk. I am the global lead analyst at Piksel, which you may once have known as Kit Digital. I am going to be doing two one-on-one interviews here, first with Anthony Rose from Zeebox, and the next with Rich Riley from Shazam. We are encouraging questions from the audience, so if you guys have any questions after the fact, we will have time for you to ask them. But without further ado, Mr. Anthony Rose, let's give it up. Okay, see, I feel like Johnny Carson here. I need an Ed McMahon. No one knows. Actually, in this crowd, people know who that is. Other crowds that look at you, it's like, yeah, the guy who was before Jay Leno. Anyway, so how you doing, Anthony?
Hi, good. Sun's out. It's great.
Okay, so let's plunge right into this. We're going to be having a conversation, just a little bit about Zeebox, a lot about the industry. So, one of the things when I go around and talk to people, which I do a lot, people keep saying to me, so what's with second screen? Like, why isn't it? It was a big thing last year. It was a big thing the year before. Where is it? Like, why? We keep thinking, why hasn't it taken off? And I said, well, maybe it is. Maybe it's where it should be, and you just have unrealistic expectations. What are you thinking?
So it's a great question. I think we've all seen the second screen hype, and now we think, is it plateauing? Where is the action happening? And it seems to me that there's an old tech adage, which is things always take longer than you expect, but the effect is more profound. And back in my BBC iPlayer days, when video on demand was launching, I think we saw broadcasters and others going, this video on demand really isn't taking off. It's only like 1% or 2%. But actually give it a few years, and it really becomes something significant. And I think we've seen with second screen, we've all rushed into very quick thoughts that consumer behavior would change dramatically in a very short period. I think it has changed dramatically with the advent of mobiles, tablets, and so on. I think people are still searching for that right engagement. It's clear that that engagement will come and that things will change profoundly. I think we thought the world would change in 6 months or 12 months. I think it's going to take a little bit longer. But as people tap further into shows, the broadcasters create new types of content, I think that engagement will change. But actually, if I can spend a moment more on the question, I think the evolution of second screen to me, or television, is once upon a time you'd sit back and just watch TV. And you couldn't talk to anyone else. Millions of people were watching, but they're watching individually. And then the second screen guys and Twitter and Facebook and the dot-com startup kids created apps that let people talk to each other, but the broadcasters continued to make the same type of programming. And that's broadly where we are today. So you talk to each other, not connected with the show. The next phase, which we're beginning to see, is that the integration with on-screen graphics, the recognition that, in fact, the audience is talking to each other, appearing as a thin veneer on the show. And the next step will be program makers creating entirely new formats and genres, which will really be not first or second screen, but participation. So I think really, to me, we've hit quite quickly the set of things people can do in front of another person's TV show, and the next evolution will come as we tie a lot more closer into the show, which will, second screen guys take months to make an app. Shows on TV are commissioned on an annual basis, and people change their TVs on a 7-year cycle. So you start with mobile, get into the show, and ultimately plug into the TV.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, to me, a lot of the hype came around these statistics, which didn't make any sense if you actually thought about them. And the big one that's always thrown around is Nielsen had done some study, and something like 80% of people were using their phone or tablet while they were watching TV. The second screen was going to be, the next big thing. It's like, no, they're doing it because they're not really watching TV. It's on in the background while they're checking their email. And you're right. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can be doing. So talking to each other is one of them. Doing more stuff around the show is another. And then there's the timing. There's stuff that we do during the show, stuff that we do after the show. And with time shifting, you've got a whole other thing where what you do during the show is not at the same time as everybody else, or if you're on the West Coast, it's the same thing. So I mean, where are you guys netting out with how that's all going to play out? Does it depend on the type of show? Does it depend on the network? I mean, what's this?
So a couple of things. I think firstly, people perceive there's only one type of audience out there. You know, the audience will interact or not. Actually, we think there are very different audiences for different types of content. And we do a lot of user surveys, user testing in the office. And for us, three sort of big audience types jump out. There's TV mavens who love watching TV, but actually they don't want to talk to other people. The more you push them with social, the more unhappy they get. But for them, it's all about a TV guide, it's recording, it's schedule management. They watch so much television. How do they make sure they watch this show without missing that show? But they don't want to talk about it. The other group are the pop idols, and these are people who watch the big events that broadcasters are pushing to drive live television. And they want to talk to other fans of the show. And then there are the social watchers who watch Jersey Shore and things like that. A smaller group, hugely buzzy, but talking to their friends. So I think it's important to target each group correctly. But I think one of the big things we've seen with Zeebox is when we started, it was all about the live TV show. People probably upread that to saying the TV, video on demand won't take off, or it's all about television live. Actually, live TV, a lot of people are watching it. It's technically easier, and they're doing it at the same time. So we started with that. Actually, it was the place to get started. But over the coming months, and over the past few months, we've been moving to embrace these different audience types. So it's the conversation in Zeebox before, during, and after the show, and then there's the sync experience during the show. So actually, I think once upon a time, Zeebox was all about television. You could probably more accurately now say it's all about the TV show, no matter where or when you're watching.
Right. No, I mean, I can see that. I mean, we had done a study not that long ago, a couple months back, where one of the interesting things we found was that a really small percentage of people, I think it was something like 17%, said that they watched their favorite show live or almost live, right? Whereas close to 60% said they almost exclusively watched it time shifted or on demand. So the takeaway from that was that a lot of live TV viewing is sort of more casual. It's like, okay, let me go see what's on tonight. So which one of your sort of demographic, that would sort of be the second one, right? Not the mavens, but the sort of pop. Would you call them Popeye?
Well, those figures about live versus on-demand viewing vary enormously, as you know, by different types of contents. The news and weather doesn't make much sense. Catch up. News and sport are watched live. But on the other hand, drama or comedy is often more than 50% on demand. So I think it's not a single proposition for everyone. There are different propositions for different content types.
Right. So now, what have you guys been doing with Zeebox to try and get people, say, from people who are TV mavens, because that's somebody who none of the initial apps, round of apps seem to address. It was more just raising chatter and tuning into live TV. But you got these people who are big fans of the show. They maybe they finish watching the show at 1 a.m. because they've time shifted it, or they've just binged on 3 episodes. So what do you got for them?
So I think taking a step back, which is what is the proposition that we think people are after? We think people start with looking for something to watch. How are you going to decide what to watch? Today it's something, for us, our world are programs that are coming up or have been on television. And we'll bring you a synchronized experience, whether the show's live or you're catching up using ACR or your West Coast. So we start with a guide, and release by release, that's becoming more and more personalized. Our release that went out a few days ago on iOS, coming up shortly on Android, has got an all-new TV picks with recommendations for you for shows you're following. So the first thing is helping people plan their viewing. And that really addresses the TV mavens. We act as a remote control, we'll track the show. But now that you're in a show, or you've said you'd like to follow some shows, we'll bring you TV rooms where you can engage in a conversation thread before, during, and after the show. And we all know that for some shows, you're chatting during the show, and others, you really want to put your second screen aside, concentrate on the show, but the conversation's before and after. And our TV rooms really address that. And then the third class, which is those synchronized experiences, are during the Voice or X Factor or whatever it is, where you're voting, you're playing along. So I think we're trying to address each of those with different parts of our application.
Okay. And how are you finding people? I mean, is it just through on-air promos? I mean, are those showrunners helping you out by doing stuff specifically for the show? Because I mean, that's something we hear a lot too. Is that depending on some shows are great, some networks will do all sorts of stuff with with the second screen, and then others still treat it like a website circa 2002, where we'll throw a few stills, leave us alone.
So, I mean, either people tell each other, or you help tell people, or your partners or TV shows help do that on your behalf. We see all of those. Of course, we like to be socially viral and people tell their friends, and that happens. But there's nothing like an on-screen integration. But on-screen integrations work well when there's clear benefits. It's not just, use a product or go here. You can see those results fed back. So I think one of the key things for us is, as Jason mentioned earlier, Zeebox everywhere. So it's not just experiencing the proposition within Zeebox. Parts of that are being syndicated. They'll go into the new TV Everywhere apps. There's a rise, of course. All the operators and key networks are creating apps where you can stream live or on demand the video on your phone or your tablet. And when that happens, there's no more second screen. It all has to be on the first screen. And when you have new smart TVs and X1 set-top boxes and so on that can put overlays on the TV, then also we see where's the first and second screen. So for us, Zeebox everywhere also means wherever the video is playing, can we put the interactions around it on top of the video potentially? The user can move it aside. Can we take the aggregate results and feed that back into the TV screen? So if you're around at 5 o'clock today, we're looking at the hackathon, and some of the guys are creating things where they're taking Zeebox APIs and plugging it into Samsung smart TVs. So you'll see all the things you can have in Zeebox on the TV. They tell me it learns how much you like to see how much to overlay. So I think for me, a big takeaway is next year won't be so much just about first and second screen. For me, it's participation TV, being increasingly part of the show.
So you're talking, when you're saying on the screen, something that kind of looks like the little ticker on CNN or Bloomberg or something. I mean, that much screen space, or is it like taking up the whole screen, or it's sort of intuits what you want and it depends from show to show?
I don't know the answer, and actually it's going to depend very enormously by the TV show. I think putting another ticker down the bottom would be a really bad idea. And I think putting social commentary all over the TV screen is a really bad idea. On the other hand, when Mr. Obama does the State of the Union in January, I would love to see an audience worm chart of are people agreeing or disagreeing. I'd like to be able to play along. I'd love it that Mr. Obama looks down at it and goes, ooh, people are disagreeing. I should change my pitch on Syria. But that's going to be, maybe the 2015 one.
Right. Okay. Now, you guys started out though as doing your initial thing was doing a program guide, which is not sexy, but is still a pretty cool idea. I mean, we keep getting feedback on that's sort of the one thing that's broken, and it all comes on so much of the TV here that the program guide just doesn't work for people. It's just too hard to use. The remote's not good. I mean, are you seeing traction on that? I mean, I know you have a deal with Comcast. Like, are people, kind of going, wow, this thing's got a keyboard and I can actually, find stuff on it?
Fascinating question. So we never really intended to be a program guide. We really intended to be a second screen synchronized companion app. But in order for people to get to the show that they wanted to interact around, you had to give them some kind of guide. And actually, we woke up one day and realized people perceived us a lot as a program guide, perhaps even more than the second screen experience. And so does that mean there was an unmet demand? Are people looking for a new program guide because those EPGs, the on-screen things suck, and everyone's looking for something better? What's really fascinating is now that we're perhaps uniquely live in different countries, Australia, UK, and US, we can compare and contrast. And Australia, we find, is a lot less interested in social interaction and a lot more in TV guide. The US is a lot more about social and a lot less interested in guide. Maybe the market's better served elsewhere. Maybe it's less about channels and more about shows. And the UK sits in between. So it's actually fascinating. Essentially, I think for us, it's fun with television, and it's following your favorite shows. And that means helping you find them, which is really important because they may not be on television at the time you come to the app, bringing you constant feeds of gossip, news, celebrity talk, and then when the show is on, either playing on a mobile or playing on TV or time-shifted, we'll bring you a synchronized experience around that.
Okay, so like in your ideal world, what is someone's general interaction with Zeebox? Is it sort of, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch TV, let me open up Zeebox, or is it, I'm checking my Facebook, now I'll check my Zeebox and see what, what's going on in that world? Because I'm into these TV, like how do these TV message boards work, the rooms?
So
I know, but it just because a lot of people here may not have seen it.
All right. Well, again, there isn't one audience, right? So some people, it's all about planning your evening's viewing. So you wake up, and the first thing you do in the morning is get out your iPhone and launch Zeebox and see what's on TV. At least that's our hope. And you can follow your favorite shows, you can get bookings, and for many people, that's what they do, they're planning. And for them, they expect the guide to be complete. It needs to know about your zip code and provider and make sure that the show's on it. And this is a very hard problem to solve, to get the lineup exactly right. NBC have changed the schedule. Sound of Music was so successful last week that they're repeating it on Saturday, but the schedule changed. And actually, this change hasn't come through. So for many people, this guide problem is actually an important consumer one and a very difficult technical one. Some people will like that. We think that in the new version of Zeebox, checking it as frequently as you check Facebook for updates on shows you're following and friends and so on is an important thing. And I don't think we're fully there yet. We're getting there. And for others, people will be interacting during the show. But it really is very different. And I think coming back to the joke about the kids earlier, we find, for example, with Degrassi High, our TV room lights up with thousands of people during the show and a vibrant conversation. But with other shows like The Sound of Music, completely different. There's synchronized lyrics you can sing along. It may not be chatting, but it's a synchronized set of information, song lyrics and so on. Different things for different shows.
Right. But in terms of the rooms, am I connected to my other social networks? Like, are you able to find, if I'm having, if it's 2 a.m. and I just need to tell somebody that their take on Homeland is wrong, because mine is more right, is there a way to then track them down on Facebook or, know that I'm talking to my actual friends rather than some person with a pseudonym on, Space Girl 299?
Okay, so a couple of things. There's real names versus fake names. There is a pivoting around your friends, around the fans of the show. So when I started, I said that some people are interested in fans of the show and some are interested in their friends. So in Zeebox, you can log in with Facebook, you can log in with Twitter. We'll bring in your social graph to bring in your friends. But actually, we found the TV rooms better match, I think, a consumer need for people who are fans of that show. And often it's people who share the same viewing as you. So really, you join a TV room, and the TV room is going to be fans of the show. And we think, and we found, that fans of the show better matches people than their friends. So, you look at your friends, what shows do they like? It may or may not be the same as you. Some people will be big fans of X Factor. I have no interest in X Factor. But the great thing about TV rooms is they're self-selecting. You will find that fan base there. And joining them can then lead to different recommendations for you based on your personalized viewing.
Right. Now, is that something you're enabling, or you're thinking they'll just actually see that somebody posted in the TV room, hey, this show is also cool, you should check it out, or some combination? In other words, are you guys tapping in okay, you're a member of the Homeland and the Blacklist
absolutely.
Room, so you might also like this?
Absolutely. When you click that you've watched a program, when you book a program, when you join a TV room, it's indicating a vote for a particular show, which will then influence the recommendations that you'll get on the homepage in Zeebox.
Right. No, that's because one of my issues always with tapping into social graph for recommendations is not that it's irrelevant, but it's rarely surprising, right? Like if I look at Spotify and, what do most of my friends like? Well, depending on their age, the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, or Jay-Z. And then, you're rarely surprised by what the majority of people like because it's just whatever's popular.
The great news is recommendations never work perfectly, so there's always the element of surprise.
Right, right. So now where do you see things, so if we're looking forwards, right? Where do you see, I mean, is linear TV still going to be a factor? Is it going to be, are we mostly going to be doing time shifted and at this sort of Netflix-y model where it's just like, okay, here's the season and let's do it?
So fascinating question, obviously the defining question. And it seems to me there are three sort of concentric circles. The inner one is people watching TV shows live. The second one is you've forgotten about the schedule. It's not important. All you know is on Wednesday night, there's a new Homeland that becomes available. You don't remember what channel it was on. All you know is sometime on Wednesday night, you can watch Homeland at a time of your choice after 10 p.m. So those are shows that have been on TV that you can now watch when and where you like. And then the outer circle are things that have never been on TV. That's the world of Netflix and YouTube and so on. And I think for Zeebox, we started with this inner one, which is shows on TV now. We're expanding rapidly into the things that are on TV or have been. For us, I think the world of all things is a step beyond, but I think we'll get there.
Okay. So now in that future world or even now, if I'm a network and I'm making my own stuff and you come to me and, my immediate response is, well, why do I need Zeebox? Why can't I just do this myself? And you say?
And I say you probably have been doing that yourself, and there's something called the app graveyard, the world filled with apps around TV shows. And it's a lot of money to build a dedicated app. It takes weeks or months. You get it to use it for an hour a week for the 13 weeks or whatever the show's on air. And it very rarely makes commercial sense. Instead, our platform says you can use our mission control tools. You can enhance a show with zero technical effort. You can deliver the proposition inside Zeebox, or you can syndicate that. So our tools actually give broadcasters an end-to-end platform now for zero tech effort to create a range of synchronized enhancements, TV rooms and more, that they can either get with the Zeebox user base or put inside their own websites and properties. And very soon, add to their TV everywhere players and integrate back into their on-air graphic systems.
Okay, very cool. So this is a good breaking point. If anybody in the audience has some questions for Anthony, there are people walking around with microphones. So let's start with that gentleman over there, and then up front row, Nick.
Hi, you're talking about the fact that you can have second screen viewing, or a device might be a second screen, or the smart TV. Have you looked at the possibility of Zeebox letting the user to decide where they want their enhancements to appear, and maybe to change it from time to time? If you're leaning back, you want it on your smart TV. If you really want to interact and not interrupt somebody else, you bring it to your device.
Right, so great question. I mean, today the video largely plays on the television, and the interaction happens until you can touch your television, happens on your phone or tablet, and that's the second screen. Once you can begin to put the interactions onto the TV, is that a really good thing, or is it a really annoying thing? And I think we'll see a rollout where the easiest way to get things onto the TV experience, obviously you reach 100% of the audience, is through putting it through the on-air graphic systems. The problem is the user has no chance to make it go away, and it can't be personalized. So I think we'll see aggregated audience votes, polls, play-alongs, and so on being fed back into the TV, but you won't be able to get rid of it. And if broadcasters overdo it, it'll be intensely annoying. And I think we'll see a lot of that coming up next year. There'll be good and bad lessons. But once you can start deciding what goes on your X1 box or your smart TV, of course, you'll be able to set that yourself. And I think you may find multiple family members viewing and people, clicking, I want it on the TV, I don't want it on the TV. Who knows? What will probably happen much sooner, given the replacement cycles of TVs and the number of parties who have to come together to connect these on TV, will be the TV everywhere experience, where the video plays on your phone or your tablet, and you will then be able to bring up these synchronized experiences. So I think that will be a seriously cool next proposition where instead of watching something just playing, you will start assuming that you can interact with it, including sort of malleable shrinking and expanding the video. The viewer will have much more control than they've ever had.
Okay, so Rich is the CEO of Shazam. While he's miking himself, I'll just do a little intro. Shazam, as you guys know, was a predated second screen because it was one of the biggest, it was the biggest music recognition app.
Predated smartphones even.
Did it? I did not know that.
Yeah.
And now, and using that as a base, they've managed to really work their way into television. Now, one of the interesting things to me about Shazam, compared to Zeebox, is you guys take a much more transactional approach to it. That it's, here's this specific need at the moment, and I'm going to enable somebody to actually, meet that need, whether it's, finding out the song, interacting with an ad, whatever it is, versus creating this sort of whole world around second screen.
Right.
Now, are you guys sticking with that plan, or where are you guys at?
Sure. So, Shazam approaches the TV space with the deep roots in music, obviously. And so we're the 10th most popular app in the world. We had 80 million monthly active users in November. Been downloaded over 400 million times. People are Shazamming 500 million times a month. And so we take this huge user base and scale and see people are Shazamming TV in huge, huge numbers. And so the question for us is, we want people Shazamming everything. Anytime there's media, content around them, we want them to be able to Shazam it. Radio, music, TV, movies, live events, whatever it is. So how do we make the first and foremost consumer value proposition work around TV? The first thing we did is we live ingest every TV channel in the US and every national ad. So today you can Shazam any TV show in the US, and we will, just like with music, take a fingerprint, match it in our database, and return a result around the show you're watching. What we try to do to enhance that result is partner with producers, partner with networks, and really create unique content experiences. So we're a way you can vote on X Factor this week. So you Shazam, you get a ballot, and you can vote. We were last week on Glee. You could Shazam to get a free download, a Christmas song sung by the cast. Country Music Awards, American Music Awards, Shazam, and get free content from all the performing artists. And so it's that kind of consumer value proposition that we're trying to push.
Right. Now, are you getting any data off of these people? Are you able to, because that's always, the gold of second screen, right? Is that I'll know personal data. So are you able to, people have to have accounts, you keep track of what they're doing. And then more importantly, are they able to sort of go back and go, here's what I did over the last while?
Sure. So the Shazam is really interesting from a data perspective because I mentioned 500 million Shazams per month. And if you think about a Shazam, it's a pretty strong expression of intent. I mean, something was so interesting to you that you took out your phone and pushed a button, and in some cases, held it at some sort of angle to a speaker of some sort. And what we're doing, and this has made us very interesting to the networks, Country Music Awards for the first time, for the 10 or so performing artists, we pushed a notification to everyone who had Shazammed those artists in the last 12 months. So we pushed 9 million notifications into the Shazam newsfeed for a show that had 16 million viewers, which lets us, for really the first time, talk about driving ratings. And so for our users who said, hey, I love Florida Georgia Line, that's great to know they're on ABC on Wednesday night, we made that connection. And so for the network, we become not just engagement, but now driving ratings, which is really where you want to be with those guys.
Right. Now, you brought up something that, is the one criticism I hear about you guys. You're talking about holding up the speaker is, the user experience often winds up being, oh shit, where's my phone? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, unlock. Which screen is it on? Open, right. Commercial, over.
Yep.
So, not the first time you've heard it, I'm sure, but
no.
What's the thought on that?
No, I mean, what is cool is that it takes less than 6 seconds for Shazam to do a recognition, and there's a ton of technology and infrastructure behind that. But we do have, I kind of call it the quick draw perceived problem, and sometimes real problem. And we're solving that a few ways. One, we're always getting faster and faster at recognition. 2, we've launched on the iPad, and coming soon to the iPhone, it's always on capability.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about that.
So where you
it's
flip
pervasive.
a switch and Shazam stays on, and it's just continually recognizing any media that we recognize that's around you. And so that's one way.
And then can I go back to that? In other words, because I'm just thinking, if I'm watching it, it's on, and I may not act on something at that second, but 10 minutes later when the commercial comes on, I go, oh yeah, I really wanted to know what that song was, so I'll be able to go back to it.
Oh yeah, you'll have a full playlist. So it'll work on music, so you can walk into a club and come out with every song that you heard, or it can work watching TV. And it also works with ads, because sometimes, you may want that 10% off from Geico, but not while you're watching the football game. But you go back later, and and you've effectively bookmarked it. So that's one of the way. The other thing we're working with networks on is, why don't we just Shazam enable entire segments or sections, so that it's not like no Shazam call to action, no Shazam call to action, then all of a sudden there is one.
Right.
So that's another thing we're working on.
That's pretty. So is it a possibility that you guys may become part of a network app as opposed to a separate app? In other words, that it's like, this pervasive piece lives on one of the network apps as a functionality, or are you looking to sort of, Shazam, there's a lot of value in keeping Shazam separate?
Yeah, we really don't want to be part of other people's apps. What we bring is that we are on hundreds of millions of smart devices, and in most cases we're on the top screen. So one of our core value propositions to a network is that real estate that we have, and people know where we are on their phone, they know how to get there quickly. But what we're happy to do is, after you Shazam, we're happy to do whatever makes sense. It's got to be great for the consumer, but we'll promote an app from a network or a show, or take you to YouTube or Facebook or whatever. So we really want them to push the Shazam button, and for that to mean something to consumers. Where we go next is up to them, and that's where we actually can probably get more downloads of their app than they can, because we make it where you just push a button, there's no typing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So instead of network.com/whatever, it's easier just to push a button.
No, that's... So now, I was talking with Anthony about, sort of the future and stuff. Now, you see a lot of time shifting. Is that something where you guys are able to sort of still have value when you're moving away from live TV into VOD, into something that I've recorded 2 weeks ago?
So one nice thing about just the way our system works is, we just listen, and if we've heard that sound before, we go and figure out what to return. So for us, it doesn't matter if it's time shifted. We're not part of any sort of infrastructure or cable boxes or any of that kind of stuff. And so when we hear that fingerprint and we say, okay, that's that show, return this. And so we currently keep shows for a week or two, so it's no problem.
Right. So would it be possible, say, for you guys, because the unicorn that the thing that everybody assumes exists but doesn't is this sort of idea of dynamic ad insertion. That if I recorded a show 2 weeks ago and Sony Pictures bought an ad for a movie that was being released that weekend, but now it's I can put in their ad for this weekend. Is that something that you'd be able to? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we haven't done that yet, but that's relatively easy for us to do.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So again, now sort of where do you guys see, and basically with your value proposition, what's coming next? Like what are the cool things or the big things that you see changing in the industry, and that where you'll really be able to take advantage of that?
Yeah, sure. So Always On's exciting. That's coming soon. That's a major technical breakthrough for us. You can imagine, right now we handle over 15 million Shazams a day. If some meaningful percentage of our users go to Always On, that number is going to get a lot higher. That's interesting. I would say our network conversations, primarily I think because we're now driving tune-in, are going from can we be part of the show to what are we going to do for the show. We had almost 500,000 Shazams at the American Music Awards 2 weeks ago. That's a 300% increase over the previous year. Similar numbers on the CMAs. Great results on X Factor. And so, we're starting to see numbers that are starting to get the attention of networks, producers, and advertisers. And so that just makes us work even more closely with them and create a better result for consumers.
Right. Now, the other thing is, I often hear you guys sort of called the anti-Twitter, right? And that's sort of in a good way. I mean, personally, I think there's only a certain number of people who want to talk to other people around shows, and that Twitter's going to have a really hard time getting past that number. It's a psychological thing of people's personality, whereas you guys seem to have, it doesn't have to be conversation, it's actually, enabling all the other stuff that we can't. But yet at the same time, Twitter does have a lot of people. Are they starting to engage, encroach in your territory some?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I definitely don't think second screen's a winner-takes-all kind of dynamic. I think there's consumers want choice, and we all would be crazy to just offer a single choice. So that's great. Twitter is obviously fantastic for conversation around a show or ad, and we integrate Twitter. It's deeply integrated within our app and part of a lot of our results. We tend to be more for the purpose of delivering content. So Shazam to get the recipe, Shazam to get the full interview, Shazam, to get the song, to watch this camera angle, some other sort of piece of content. And we also work a lot with advertisers. So we've run over 400 ad campaigns where we've Shazam enabled the campaign, and the pitch there is turn 30 seconds of engagement into several minutes. And I think especially in that case, like for me certainly, and I think for a lot of people, if it's a car, like we're running this great one with Jaguar right now, and when I see that Jaguar ad and I want to learn more about the car, I don't really want to talk about it. I really want to learn more about the car.
Right.
And so I think we're very well suited for delivering incremental content in a very, very easy way. And in that case, we take you inside the car, and you can schedule a test drive and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean,
If you want to talk about the car, we're probably not the
Right.
most logical place to go.
Right. I mean, and that's interesting to me because I keep wondering, when are advertisers going to sort of dawn on them? Okay, we've got Generation Netflix out there, all these kids and their parents who are being trained to basically not watch ads or view the TV without advertising as being the better option. And I mean, do you see them ever starting to think like, okay, this is a good thing because we don't have to run the whole 30 seconds. We can just kind of get them after the fact. We can just put a little thing up, they can ding it, and then, or is that still not, or they're still kind of wed to that?
I think we're making progress. I mean, part of what works with this argument, and it's a similar one used by Facebook and Twitter, is what you're doing is great. Let's just make it better. Let's make it clickable. Let's not dead end. Let's let people engage, and if they want more than 30 seconds, let them keep going. Like,
or if they want less. I mean, do they want less than 30? They want less than 30 seconds on the screen. But then, if they're actually interested, you can
go back to it.
Right,
Sure.
5 minutes.
Sure.
So
yeah. But, a lot of what we end up doing is delivering a 90-second trailer, or go inside the car, or a coupon, or whatever incremental engagement makes sense for the consumer.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. Now, obviously you guys did some testing around in the Always On, because I remember when Into Now did it, and they didn't tell anybody they were doing, or maybe they did, but people didn't sort of grasp what that meant, and there was all sorts of negative press about the privacy concerns and all. So, what are you guys thinking about how that's going to work in terms of privacy and all that?
Sure. So, first of all, Shazam has a very, very great brand, I think, and many people associate it with magic. So one of the things I want to make sure we don't do is lose that and mess that up in any way. And a lot of that comes from trust. And so one of the things that we talk about is the way our technology works is we take a fingerprint of sound waves, and when when you Shazam something, the fingerprint we get cannot be we can't tell what that was. We can't like reverse engineer the conversation or the music or the show. We take a fingerprint to a database of over 30 million sounds and look for an exact match. If we have an exact match, we return the result, and fortunately for us, we almost always find an exact match because we have teams around the world ingesting over 1 million songs a month, live ingesting TV in the US to make sure that database is as big as possible.
Right.
So we're sort of Google-like in this way in terms of big index, fast response time, but we're not recording anything, we're just taking a little fingerprint.
Right, so people don't have to sort of like, oh my God, Shazam just knew what I was up to. And again, I mean,
Right.
People do freak. People. I don't know what the big deal is, but for a lot of
Consumer
people, it
perception
is
is very important.
Right,
Yeah.
there's this perception.
And in some within iOS, some of the things that it says when you're using a microphone are things like recording, which we can't actually change that word, but we're
Right.
actually not recording. But iOS says you're using the microphone, so we're going to call it recording. But Shazam doesn't record anything. We just literally take these little bitty fingerprints, the tops of sound waves, and take them back to a big database.
Right, yeah, that's a weird thing on iOS 7 where it's always asking like if the microphone can have, right, and I'm just like, well, there is no microphone on this
Why
app.
does Google Maps need microphone access?
Exactly. I guess if I wanted to talk to it, but
Exactly.
whatnot. Now, coming back with with Shazam, there's a question I was asking Anthony before too. Where do you imagine, is there a use case where people would use Shazam when they're not Shazamming something? In other words, will they come back to it at a time? It's like, okay, let me see what I've been doing with this. What's up?
Yes. So we definitely want to extend our use case beyond I use Shazam when I hear a song I don't know the name of or I see a call to action on a TV show. We just launched our news feed, and with our news feed, what we're able to do is push things into your news feed based on Shazam behaviors that you've had. So if you Shazammed a Bruno Mars song and a new Bruno Mars song comes out, we can push that into your news feed, and we'll let you know about that push by a little badge, the little red dot on iOS as an example. And so we've seen some fantastic results from that in the pilots that we've run. We can do the same thing with concerts. We can do the same thing with TV shows. And so we'll start pushing highly relevant information to you based on the activity that you've had on Shazam. Is one of the key ways that we will do that. And in the meantime, continuing to have networks and commercials encouraging people to Shazam to get more.
Right. Right. Now, is there any thought also given to making the Shazam experience a little social? Whether it's actually like being able to see what other users are doing, or even just letting me know you just downloaded this song by Florida Georgia Line or Florida Georgia Line. Here's what other people who like this song also like. So actually making use of all the data that you get.
Yeah, so a couple things. So one, you can connect on Facebook within Shazam, and it will, in the newsfeed, pull what your friends on Facebook are Shazamming, which is a pretty neat way of music discovery. We've also started doing recommendations, which are currently kind of hard to find in the app, but leveraging the data we have to actually recommend music. We can typically predict the #1 Billboard song about 4 weeks in advance, and so we have a really, really nice signal there that the engineers sort of show me, and I say, well, we need to get this to consumers. And so you'll see that becoming more and more prominent as we continue to evolve the design. And yeah, we want to be a great place for music discovery. We also have, millions of shares coming off Shazam. So when you Shazam a song, it's 2 taps to post to Facebook, 2 taps to tweet, and very easy to email. And so in some ways, it's almost easier to share a song through Shazam than going directly, because once again, we have sort of this no typing value proposition.
Right. No, that is cool. I'm going to turn it, looking at the time here, I'm going to turn it over to the audience if you guys have any questions, because I'm sure you do. And, or I can continue talking. So does anybody have any questions? We have for Rich here about Shazam, because we've got some mics in the audience, or I can continue to ask the questions for you. No? Okay. Well, you just blew them away. I can ask you one more question here.
Sure.
You guys are all over the world too. Now, do you guys see any differences in the way people use the app from from region to region? And are you actually all over the world, or is it just sort of in Western Europe and the United States?
So we're very global. We're especially strong in the U.S. and Western Europe, gaining a lot of strength in Latin America. As some of you might know, Carlos Slim invested in Shazam a few months back and is now preloading Shazam onto their smart devices there. Asia's a little bit of a weaker spot for us. One of the reasons is people sing into it, and we don't know what to do with that. So it makes it where in the U.S. most people would say Shazam kind of always gets it right. In Asia we get it right a lot less because people are singing into it, and so we've got to. I'm sure some of that's cultural, some of that's us doing a poor job of explaining what we do and don't do, but that definitely hurts our recognition rates in Asia.
Very cool. Okay.
We don't. Nope. No, we literally just go and see if we've heard this before, and if we've heard it before, what to return, and that's what we do now.
Okay, last chance for questions. We're in the back there.
Got one.
Microphone person. Wait, hold on. Let the microphone person go because it's kind of noisy and I can't hear you, even though you're probably shouting. So.
This is just a minor point. I haven't actually tried Shazam for TV, so I was curious about this. Just a rudimentary question. Can I, if, I don't know, Dragnet is playing, I can hold it up and it will recognize the show, or do I have to wait for a Shazam tag to appear on the screen?
In the U.S., we recognize every show.
That's astonishing.
And every national ad without a Shazam tag.
Okay.
Now, the result we return is relatively basic, which is why we don't push it so much to make sure people know about it. But no, we're live ingesting every U.S. TV channel and every national ad. If we have a Shazam call to action, then we've done something sort of extra special to that result and probably have some sort of free content or something, more magical.
Right. Although chances are if you're watching it on TV, you probably know what it is.
That's right. That's right. But you may not know the cast or the website or, there's some value in Shazamming TV, but it's not.
As opposed to the radio. Anyone else? Okay. Well. Oh, wait. Over there. Sorry. Did not turn.
How does the always-on affect battery life?
Great question. So we've worked hard on that, and one thing we do is turn it off. Once the battery hits 20%, we shut it down because we certainly don't want to be the ones to take you off the battery cliff. But we also time out the app to make sure it only runs for a certain period of time and that we've made it clear to you how long it's going to stay on. But it doesn't change your charging habits is the way we kind of can best define it, because it's really hard to explain battery consumption. In fact, even iOS doesn't talk. You can't even see battery consumption rates or any of that kind of stuff. So we've just tried to make it where it wouldn't change your charging habits. So if you charge twice a day and you become an auto Shazam user, the same charging habits you had before. So. Data? Oh, no. Data consumption's minimal. Yeah, one of the benefits of being invented 12 years ago and long before iPhones is that Shazam grew up operating in very low bandwidth environments. And so the fingerprints that we send are minuscule. So we literally, we don't send a clip of the song. I learned this when I asked my engineers, could we ingest all the movies? And I was expecting to say, no, because you always think movies are big. And instead they said that's no problem at all because that's just like a few hundred songs. And we have 30 million songs. And it's just because we just need the sound wave fingerprint. So it's really, really tiny.
Here, I'll give you my. Here's a mic person.
Can you give an indication of how tight your time sync is to movies? Do you get to the second, to the frame, to the minute?
So it's certainly less than I would think about it in the 5-second kind of range right now, 5 to 6 seconds. A lot of things we sync at the millisecond, but generally speaking, it takes us. You got to assume it takes us about 6 seconds to, from the time somebody Shazams to take it, find the match, and come back. Yeah. I can tell you this, that beacons that are at every 10 seconds are too slow for us. So we're faster than that.
Very cool. Okay. Oh, wait, one more back here.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Simon Applebaum with Tomorrow Will Be Televised, the radio show that covers television on Blog Talk Radio. We did our show live from here earlier today. And one of the topics we touched on is the growing number of people and news we're getting about using second screens to put the content on that screen on the first screen, on the television set, through smart TVs and other ways, whether it's the web, whether it is a original interactive app. And I'm curious what you both think about that. Do you think that is ultimately going to be the way we use second screens rather than as a way to enhance what you are already watching on television? In other words, put what you see on that second screen, on that smartphone or tablet, and watch on the TV set. With the second screen becoming, let's say, your remote control, your joystick, your controller.
Sure. So I think I think second screen, there'll be lots of different ways and lots of different choices probably to do it. The things that come to mind for that are, for example, voting on Shazam or another second screen app and having that influence the results in the show. And you're already seeing some of that this season on some of the music award shows. So certainly audience participation in the outcome of the show for sure. And another thing we've done before is letting a user choose which camera they want to watch. So let's say it's a football game and you just want to watch the camera that's on Eli Manning. We could let you pick your camera instead of watching what's being broadcast to you. So just a couple examples of relatively easy ways to influence the viewing experience.
Right. I mean, and I think quite honestly that, in the future, you will have a remote control that's on an iPad, but it won't be your iPad. In other words, it will be a tablet-like device that serves as a remote control, but that's what it does. It's not your thing. Anyway, this is the end here. Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.